Hello, my name is René Kattenberg and I'm interested in circular economy, what drives people and how do they organize themselves. During a course at Maastricht University I came across the work of Elinor Ostrom. She's a Nobel Prize winner on economics for her work at common pool resources. Common pool resources are, for instance, fisheries, forestry and irrigation systems. If the first farmer takes too much water, the rest will suffer. You could argue that classical waste management is a public goods system and maybe circular economy is a common pool resource. In macroeconomical terms, closing the loop probably means accounting for all externalities, including the reserves of oil and minerals, the total cost of goods and the effects of its use. And the mortgage we put on social welfare when ignoring workers' conditions when we want to buy our goods for the lowest price. The Maastricht Treaty was signed here in the building right behind me 25 years ago. What would it have looked like with common pool resources in mind? How would Europe handle the migrant crisis, Brexit, economic policies and other reforms? What responsibilities would the United Nations have? Or how would the Security Council operate? What is the problem that we're trying to solve here? So let me start with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation Circular Economy System Diagram. For this video I'd like to simplify it to just the top-down linear economy and the two circular loops. My focus is on the point where used matter can become circular. When it stays linear, it's considered damage limitation by recovering some energy and avoid pollution as much as possible. There is a tension at the point where matter can become circular, which is caused by many reasons. So much that it may need systemic change to solve. To start off with, you could look at what type of goods we're dealing with. In this matrix, the difficulty of excluding others from benefits is offset against the possibility of using up and depleting the goods. Waste management is a public goods, because when the streets are clean, everyone benefits. And you can see and smell the difference when that system fails. What if the material, any material, is a finite resource? Even though it's locked in a used product, it becomes a common good. The thing is that you treat public goods differently from common goods. The same material, but a different problem. Talking about problems, what kind of a problem is it then? Here the transparency of the issue is offset against the number of perspectives applicable to the problem. In the linear economy, waste management is a difficult but overseeable problem, so probably a complicated problem. When you look at the same material through the lens of circular economy, the complexity exponentially increases. Thinking about different types of value retention, business models, interdisciplinary and cross-industry linkages, etc. Solving this kind of problem requires a different approach of probe, sense and respond. These are the principles Elinor Ostrom found to be in place for those systems that worked over a longer period. 1. Clear boundaries between legitimate users and non-users must be clearly defined, and clear boundaries are present that define a resource system and separate it from the larger biophysical environment. 2. The appropriation and provision rules are in line with the local social and environmental conditions, and the benefit obtained by the users are proportional to the amount of inputs required in the form of labor, material and money. 3. Most individuals affected by the operational rules can participate in modifying these rules. 4. Monitors who are accountable to the users monitor the users and the condition of the resource. 5. Violators face graduated sanctions by users, by officials accountable to the users, or by both, depending on the seriousness and the context of the offense. 6. Users and their officials have rapid access to low-cost systems to resolve conflicts among users or between users and officials. 7. The rights of users to create and run their own institutions are not challenged by external governmental authorities. 8. all the above activities are organized in multiple layers of nested organizations, each dealing with their own level, constituting a 3D landscape. So, this works for these small communities and has been working for a long time. Let's have a look at other forms of organization. Frederick Laloux used research on organization forms to find companies that use a new form of self-organization and found many that already used it in different sizes and different industries. In this overview, each layer eventually runs into difficulties and develops some breakthrough ideas to solve it, taking it to the next layer. Peter Green made a very good short video about it, which you can find using the link below or in the comments. Let's fast forward to orange. This is where you find most of today's corporates. They thrive on competition, setting objectives and making a profit, using innovation, accountability and meritocracy. Companies like Starbucks, Southwest Airlines and Ben & Jerry's add customer delight, shared values and engagement to differentiate themselves, put stakeholder value over just shareholder value and focus on empowerment. Dealing with increasing complexity, the next level improves on the stakeholder view and adds distributed decision making. They make the organization more robust by making it more flexible and are driven from a higher purpose to keep direction in contrast to a central command and control regime. These organizations strive to have a better connection with their environment. To do this, they allow their employees to bring their whole self to work rather than being a cog in a machine that has knowledge and capabilities. They allow self-management for the organization to adapt to local conditions, and its purpose can evolve because of this to stay relevant in its environment. Laloux describes characteristics of these organizations that you can adopt. A fully worked out system using similar principles is, for instance, holacracy. One of the organizations researched by Laloux is a home care organization in the Netherlands called buurtzorg, which translates as neighborhood care. As in many other places in the world, the Netherlands faces increasing healthcare costs. This organization grows substantially where competitors go bankrupt, which buurtzorg then absorbs to increase their reach. At buurtzorg, local teams decide themselves what and how care is delivered, leading to happier and better care for clients and happier and more productive employees. In contrast, other organizations following the orange paradigm appoint managers, set targets and measure time spent on different tasks. One care home recently updated their care plan and included the 3 times a day a client was allowed to be helped to the toilet. If the urge became too strong, they would help you, of course, but that would use up the next scheduled time slot. Otto Scharmer provides a different perspective. He uses an iceberg model to identify 3 divides: ecological, social and spiritual. Identifying the issue is only the tip of the iceberg, and there are many underlying factors that cause it. Similarly to Laloux, there is the congruence with the environment, or lack thereof, that drives change. This can go 2 ways: a disconnect or rebalancing with the environment, which he calls absencing and presencing. When you look at the evolution at the different systems, top down, I recognize similar patterns as with Laloux. Where Laloux comes with an empirical set of ideas, and others like holacracy even with a completely worked out system, Scharmer has a more generative approach which complements each other, all working in the same direction. The wholeness of Laloux becomes very real and personal in the U-curve of Scharmer's approach. It supports people and organizations, making the shift from one value system to another. This shift also seems to happen in the world of economists. Bill White wrote an introductory paper to the OECD working group New Approaches to Economic Challenges, set up in response to the recent economic crisis. The notion here is that the economy is a non-linear, complex system that has no equilibrium, where institutions need to be able to respond to changed circumstances. This is not how most scholars have taught us today and how most of the world operates by. Driven by globalization and technical and social innovations, the world of economics has changed from an overseeable, complicated problem to a complex problem. Similarly as within marketing, where you go from one size fits all via customer segmenting to n=1, delivered to you through big data and artificial intelligence. These same technical innovations, together with interdisciplinary collaboration, provides new insights in how to make sense of the economic system. The economic world, including OECD and the European Union, have woken up to this new reality and are working hard to make amends. This is not as easy as you're talking about a systemic change of epic proportions, but I think it's necessary and inevitable. Here are some of the remarks highlighted in their report on dealing with complexity. They accept that the global economy is characterized as a complex adaptive system that cannot be successfully governed or steered with simple linear mechanisms. It needs greater coordination of national tax and regulatory systems. They also recognize that interpersonal trust is an important element of complex societies as well as a personal trait or skill. The weather is a complex adaptive system, and the more data we have, the better our forecast can be on what the weather is doing. Advances in technology help us to make a better forecast. Looking back across different perspectives, I see many similarities and common patterns. Could there be something in common pool resources that is valuable for solving today's issues? Would, in this case, what is working in small communities be scalable to a global level? I don't know, but the principles of trust, transparency, self-management and nested complex structures are so strong that it's worth considering. With these principles in mind, and if we would have a blank canvas, what would Europe look like? I think the whole discussion about Brexit or not would become irrelevant. With our linear thinking, we sometimes reduce to what we perceive as a complicated problem into a simple yes or no, whereas in reality it would be much more complex. Only if our organization around it, driven by our values and beliefs, would cope with it, it would be much easier to solve. The current reality is that we're not there yet, and we have a collective choice to handle the situation appropriately. Zooming out to global level and looking back at ourselves, our highest level of organizations on Earth, such as United Nations organizations including Security Council, Human Rights Council, the World Bank, IMF, G20, etc., also need the awareness and capabilities of dealing with the increasingly complex system humanity has become and the influence it has on its environment. With this video, I'd like to highlight the principles of common pool resources and its relevance to the circular economy. Moreover, what drives us and how we organize to solve the issues we're dealing with, that is important. This could be useful for policymakers and governing bodies at any level, or even when you want to set up a collaboration between groups or companies. Let's take a good and honest look at ourselves, the world, and see what is needed.
If we can slowly but surely change the way we think about these problems, I think there are ways of doing much better multi-level thinking and understanding the diversity and the complexity and not rejecting it. So yes, I think there's a good chance.
Then you would go out and see the Earth, and you would see the blue sky. Not the blue sky which you see when you're outside. In space you see that you're the only one. You're the only planet. You have no spare. And so you have to take care. We can save the Earth, but we also can destroy it. Even a small thing does something.